you could be a Disney animator. So that kind of started the track. And then, you know, we got a camcorder and I would shoot movies with my family, and I would edit in camera is what I figured out later in life. Like because I didn't know what linear editing, what non-linear editing was, or we didn't have the technology. So, you know, but I knew how movies looked, and I knew I understood what a cut was, even if I didn't know what it was. And then, so we would shoot movies like that where I would be cutting in camera, and then eventually got to UNLV, and I took George Wang's class. I think it was to learn Final Cut 7. It was just I can't remember the name of that class, but it was just a pretty standard editing class. You know, we edited Gunsmoke. I'm not sure if you guys still do that. But that's kind of where I figured out, like, oh, this is what I want to do. I also thought editing at the time was what the director did. So like, I was like, I want to be a director. I don't want to be a director. I very quickly learned I do not want to be a director. I like editing. I like being in a dark room, contrary to this setup today. But I like to be in a dark room and, you know, looking over footage and, you know, answering questions that I pose myself of like, why did they shoot this? And like, you know, that sort of thing. And yeah, putting pieces together in ways that maybe weren't intended, but like create a really interesting version of storytelling. Yeah. Did I answer your question? I feel like I went on a really long tangent, but
no, we actually
no, I did not answer your question. God.
No. You answered the question. We had
Okay.
technical difficulties. I accidentally unplugged, so we missed a tiny part of your speech.
Oh no!
You were in the zone, so I wasn't going to stop you.
I heard it all, Mike.
Okay.
You answered the question.
It's
okay,
recorded,
great.
so they'll watch it. They'll watch
okay.
it.
Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. Just like wave me down. Sorry.
No worries. Anna, would you like?
Yeah. So I actually didn't even know that filmmaking was a career, but I grew up watching a ton of TV and movies and loved it, but didn't know that was an option. So I went to the University of Virginia and got a degree in biology. Thought I was going to go to med school. But to the chagrin of my parents, I took a film class while I was there and loved it. Particularly loved, like, it was 16 millimeter filmmaking, so we had Bolexes and we were shooting just like experimental films on 16 millimeter film, and we'd get it developed, and we'd have to slice the film like with a it wasn't even like a moviola splicer or anything. It was just like this razor blade that we would cut the film with and tape it together, and then we watch it on a projector. And so I love that kind of physicality of making a decision where to put the cut and having to splice it with real tape. And you know, you had to really commit. And after graduating, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought vaguely that I wanted to go into film. Didn't know how to accomplish that. Knew I couldn't just move to LA and be like, hey, I'm here. Definitely not an extrovert, very much an introvert. So I saw that UNLV had a film department and decided to go there and take as many film classes as I could and learn more about it. And met some great people. Jason was one of the first people that I met.
That's him over there.
That's him over there.
Yeah,
the best.
Right there.
And we spent hours and hours and hours just talking about films and editing in particular. And Francisco Menendez kind of just graciously welcomed me into the fray and had me editing his feature that he was doing there, Primo. And learned a ton about editing and pace and storytelling, and just met some fantastic people who were also encouraging. And I applied to AFI and didn't get in, so I stayed at UNLV for another year and applied again, and I got in at that point, and just studied editing in grad school for a couple years, like Drew, and then just got into the union and I got into the industry at a very good time, because when I was in school, there was a writer strike and people were struggling to get jobs at that point, but it ended right before I graduated, and it was kind of the apex at that point of just shows were going into production. Streaming was becoming a big thing, and so there was so much work. It was a
Mhm.
lucky time to get into the industry, and got a job almost right away, and just kind of made my way up from there.
Awesome, awesome. And well, um, sorry. Mike, could you talk about like your time at UNLV just a little bit, because you came up before I did, and like I knew, because I had seen your shorts, but I didn't know who the editor was. So
Yeah, well, my time at UNLV was a little, I don't know how much I really you know, networked at UNLV. I kind of kept to myself, and I have like I feel like I'm also an introvert, and so like I just sort of was like, well, I know I'm gonna get to California. I need to get to California some way. Like Anna, like I didn't just move here. Like I went to grad school after I graduated from UNLV at Chapman, which is down in Orange County, and then like networked that way. But my time at UNLV was mostly just I was in the post classes that were there at the time. That was there were two classes I took with George Wang. That was the editing and then the sound design. And the sound design was also like really sort of impactful on me, and it's something that I've carried with me throughout my entire career. But I didn't really collaborate on films. I didn't meet. It's funny. A really good friend of mine, Andy Carney, he's also an editor that went to UNLV, and he and I graduated the same time, and then we didn't become friends until we both moved to LA, and we were like,
oh,
wait, you went to UNLV too? And like, but like Andy was the type of guy that was like shooting stuff because he wanted to direct. I think he probably still does. He probably also does direct. And he would be the one that was, I remember at UNLV, like sort of running around with a camera and things like that. Yeah.
okay, okay. And so when you guys finished grad school, could you talk about like some of your first jobs and getting into the industry? And I'll start with you first.
Yeah. So if you want to go into like scripted television, you have to be part of the union, Local 700. And in order to get into the union, you have to get your union hours. So you have to work a certain number of hours. I don't remember exactly how many, getting paid a certain rate for doing the jobs you want to do. So I worked uh, at a kind of trailer slash music video house, and I was an assistant editor there, just kind of logging footage for them and just organizing bins. I think they were using Final Cut at the time. Um, and then I got an opportunity to edit a Norwegian docuseries that was shooting in LA. I'm half Norwegian and I speak Norwegian, so they wanted an editor in LA who could speak Norwegian. And I kind of manipulated the paperwork because I was my own assistant editor anyway. So I said everything I was getting paid for was as an assistant editor. And so with those two things, I got enough hours to be able to join the union. And once you jump through the hoops of that and filling out all the paperwork and joining the industry roster, you are eligible to, oh, hey, that's me.
Yeah.
You're eligible to take union jobs, but then you have to get a union job. And that's really the hardest part.
Yeah, it is.
It's because I had so many interviews. I remember being so excited to have like an interview at Parks and Rec for an assistant editing gig. And you go and you just tell them how experienced you are and what you've done. And they're like, well, you sound great, but you don't have any union experience. So sorry, we have to go with somebody with experience. I think I went on 10 interviews and they all turned me down. And then I had an interview for the show called Wilfred for FX with Elijah Wood. It was a kind of surrealist show. There you go, the guy in a dog suit. And they when they interviewed me, they were like, all right, well, we're going to be shooting on these what cameras were they doing? It was like some Canon camera that I had used a lot at AFI, and you're like, you're going to have to digitize your own footage, you're going to have to sync the sound yourself, you're going to do all organize the bins for the editors. There are 3 editors and 2 assistants. And I'm like, yeah, this all sounds great. I do this all the time. Fantastic. And I got a call like a week later saying that I got the job. And it was amazing. It was a lot of work, but I learned so much, and it was a lot of fun. And the post producer on that show, when we wrapped, said, we interviewed about 12 assistant editors for this position, and all of them turned us down. And you were the only one that said that you would do the job. And that's why you got the job. And he's like, but I'm so glad that you did because you were great. And then on my next show, New Girl, I found out that typically union assistant editors don't digitize footage. They don't sync sound.
Yeah.
These were all things that were not really part of the job description, which is why so many people turned them down for the job. But it was great. It was a tremendous learning experience, and it was kind of a lesson in, being enthusiastic about doing hard work and just showing up and putting a good face on it. Now, with all the experience that I've had, I can't imagine doing that job. I would have also turned them down, but it was lucky for me at the time.
Yeah. Mike, could you talk about your start to your career?
Yeah, similarly, like I graduated from Chapman, and then a friend of mine who was way more savvy at networking and just talking to people, we were graduating at the same time. She already had a job, and she had started as a nighttime digitizer at a reality TV company, and then she got bumped up to nighttime assistant. So then somebody needed to fill her role, and she recommended me. They hired me, and I'd come in at like 7 p.m. and all the editors would leave probably around like 9. So I'd have like all the machines to use to just digitize tapes all night. And then let's see, I got bumped up to nighttime assistant. Then that eventually, after a year, I was daytime assistant at the reality TV company that did Duck Dynasty, which yeah. But then let's see what happened. I hopped over to Bunham and Murray, which they started Real World, and I was an assistant on The Challenge, and I was trying to get over into scripted. It was always the goal. I had my hours already, and like Anna, I was going on interviews and things like that, always getting turned down. I learned I learned a really good lesson to always say, like, you do know how to do something. You're not supposed to lie. I'm not telling you to lie, but you should always just be like, yes, I can do that, and then figure it out later. Anyway, I got turned down for a lot of scripted jobs. So then I eventually was like, well, if I'm gonna be in reality, unscripted now, I should start asking to cut stuff. Like, I might as well sharpen this skill, because like as an assistant, you're doing a lot of technical stuff that isn't really, and especially in an unscripted reality, you don't have the assistant editor dynamic that you get in scripted. You're usually one of two assistants for 8 editors, and it kind of becomes unpersonal, and there's not a mentorship type of element. But so anyway, I was like, hey, I want to cut. Give me your Nextons, give me your Podbusters we used to have. Which should I explain what a Podbuster is? I'm like, does your class know what a Podbuster is? Podbuster was the thing networks were trying to introduce to stop fast forwarding on DVR. So it'd be like a short, like 30-second, you would think like while you're fast forwarding, oh, the show's back. So you would stop, right? And then like it'd only be 30 seconds, and then it would go back to commercials. So you could watch more commercials. I was like, give me the Podbusters, give me the Nextons, give me the previously ons, which, like editors will want to hand that stuff off because they get kind of tiresome and they have so much other scene work to do, that like, here was this young guy being like, hey, I'll do it. It's like, okay, fine. Recap the entire last hour episode into a minute. And that's where I really like learned how to hone my storytelling abilities. Long story short, I eventually got promoted in reality. And I worked as an editor for about a year and a half at Butte and Murray, and then another company. And then I was still interviewing for assistant jobs though in scripted, because I knew scripted was the goal. And I got my first big break on Community, but that was only for like 3 weeks. Then my actual big long chunk was on a TV show called The Blacklist, and that was on season 3. The same friend who had a job in grad school that she got bumped up and then brought me in, she was already on The Blacklist. She was leaving The Blacklist. Another assistant was also leaving The Blacklist. So there were slots that opened up. She recommended me. I interviewed, and I got the job. And so then I looked at it as a lateral move, going from unscripted editor to scripted assistant editor. Some people don't. That's their opinion. But I was like, this is where I want to be eventually. So that was my next move. And then, so I've been assisting and then getting bumped up on episodes throughout the years. And yeah, just, I've cut some pilots, and then like just through networking, I've been like cutting various shorts and things like that. And yeah.
Awesome.
I just wanted to chime in on something that Mike has been saying is the, using the people that you meet in school as tools for networking. And I had the same experience with people that I met at AFI. We're all looking out for each other. Like there was definitely some animosity between people in grad school. And like, that's not the way to go. Like, these people might provide opportunities to you in the future, and should utilize them, and not make enemies. Because I'm still friends with people from AFI, and we still get each other jobs.
Totally.
My assistant editor for 5 years, Yoni Reese was a classmate of mine at AFI, and then he started co-editing episodes with me. We got nominated for an Emmy together for Station 11, and now he's editing Fallout and got nominated for an Emmy for that.
Wow.
And he's going to join me on Three Body Problem next season for season 2. So we're going to be editing together again. So it's like, and my friend Daniel Kubir, I met at AFI. We still keep in touch and provide opportunities for each other. Brian Wessel, another person that I met at AFI, same thing. It's when there are opportunities, the people that I'm going to recommend are the people that I've known forever and trust. And so definitely make friends, not enemies.
Yeah, absolutely. Same, like, and it becomes a very small circle, and it's the job pool right now is also kind of like shrinking. So like
Shrinking.
if you know someone who is working, it's like you want to be their best friend. Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to open it up for questions. So does anyone have any questions? If you do, just come up and we will get it started. I swear to God, do not embarrass me.
Oh no, no questions.
Okay, we got a question. Oof. Okay, I was scared for a second. It's flipping the camera. So you got it. All right, here you go.
All right.
Hi, my name is Soren. You guys are kind of like just talking about, that concept of keeping, strong relationships and stuff like that, especially with things like AFI and whatnot. I was kind of just curious in terms of like networking, what that looks like for you guys. Is it kind of the way that like it works more like Hollywood-esque, like with directors and things like that, where they build a small team and they keep within that small team? I just know editors, we tend to be kind of more solitary and just kind of bounce from project to project. So do you kind of have that similar thing where you keep working with the same people over and over again? Or is it more kind of just of a hearsay of you guys just have this like mycelium network of editors?
In my experience, like it definitely started out as working for a bunch of different people, but I have found that the more I kind of work, the more I find the people I want to work with, and because there's definitely a wide variety of experiences with showrunners and directors. You find the people that are difficult to work with, and you try to stay away. And so I have 3 different teams of people that I tend to work with, and I kind of bounce around between those 3 kind of circles, and it's solely based on I really like the people and they make good stuff, and I am in a very lucky position where I can be a little picky about what I'm working on, and I know it's not that experience for everybody. I don't know about Mike, if you have an agent or not. I don't personally have an agent,
No.
but that's another way to go, especially when you're first starting out. If you're not getting a lot of traction, a lot of people get an agent to kind of help them find their next thing. And I find the people who do have agents probably work with a bigger variety of people. But for me, I do keep it pretty insular.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, starting out, you're kind of like, as an assistant, you'll start kind of just going where your editor goes. And what's important to do in that situation is your editor is your number one priority and connection, but it's also really good to be friendly with post producers, post supervisors, everybody. Obviously, we're all going to be polite and friendly, but what I mean is there are sometimes tense situations because post supervisors want something different than an editor wants, than a producer wants, and you have to sort of juggle all those wants and needs and do it kind of like no sweat. You want to make everybody happy. And so, by doing so, then you can reach out to those post producers when like your editor has, maybe your editor's on vacation and like, but you need a job and you're like, hey, let me reach out to Annie or whoever and like, hey, remember, oh yeah, we need somebody, you were great, like let's pull you on. So that's like an instance. More so specifically to me now, like I've been thankful that there are people, there are producers and directors that do want to work with me again. And this is more so like side project, kind of like passion project thing. I've been trying to, like, television is where I've been making my money, my healthcare, my steady income, but like the indie stuff is where I'm getting more opportunities to do fun stuff. And those are the relationships that I'm sort of, that have been returning investments of like, they want to keep working with me and I want to keep working with them. Yeah, I think that's, if that answers, does that answer your question? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, who's next?
Oh my.
I'm the voice of God. Anybody? All right, thank you.
Hello, my name is Adrian.
Hi, Adrian.
I was wondering if you guys haven't already worked on it, what would be your dream show to do editing for, or like, or show, or scripted, or whichever?
I am trying right now and would love to get into features. And it's I haven't gotten any traction yet, but I'm hoping in the future to jump to features, big sci-fi fare. I mean, I'm definitely a sci-fi editor. Love that genre. X-Files was my favorite show growing up, and but I kind of love where I am. But I would love to edit big sci-fi features for sure. But I don't know. One show that I loved that I would have loved to edit that is not sci-fi is Shogun. That was one of my favorite shows from last year, and I wish I had been a part of it.
Nice. The Buffy reboot. I'm a huge Buffy fan. Buffy is another reason I'm like here in LA. Yeah, like, and working in this industry and love working in this industry. So like the second Sarah Michelle Gellar like teased it, I was like already texting people. I'm like, hey, how do we, so we're that's still boiling somewhere over there. But like Hacks, I love Hacks. I love comedy. I love half-hour comedy. Parks and Rec, earlier when Anna said that, I was like, oh, I was jealous you got to interview for Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec is like something I would have loved to have worked on. I got kind of close to that with like, I worked on a show called Ghosted, which was season 1, and Adam Scott, Craig Robinson, and I got promoted on that, and then we got canceled. LOL. But that was such a fun job. It was cool because our editing rooms were on set. So like we had to walk through set, which was just like this abandoned warehouse in the valley that we also used as the exterior stock shot. Like if you watch it, it's on Hulu if you guys, but like we would walk through the abandoned warehouse through the set, and then like there would be our editing bays. So then like Adam Scott would shoot all day, and then he would come and like, because he was also an EP, he would come and edit with us till night because he never sleeps. But it was so much fun because I was like, oh, this is the experience. This is like, you know, the red lights flashing. We can't walk out to our cars yet, and you know, that was really cool being on set editing because like, you know, we'd be working on stuff and then you're like, oh, we need a piece here, we need an insert, and then like we could like we could communicate it to set, and then like they could like maybe write it in on the call, like add it to the call. Okay, we can do that real quick. And then actually like that happened once, and I got to direct the insert, which was very weird. But like that never happens. But like it did, and so I don't know. That was a fun job. I also really loved working on Bros, which came out in 2022. That was a big passion project for me. Like when the Deadline article came out about it, I was like, oh, that'd be great to work on. And then just a series of like doors opened, and it was like, hey, are you available? Do you want to come work on this? And I was like, yes. And then I took it, and like I got along really well with Nicholas Stoller, the director, and then Billy Eichner, the writer, star, producer. And then Billy's hired me to like edit his Billy on the Street stuff since then. So that's kind of like paid off in like two ways, where it was like, oh, this was like a really important movie that I wanted to work on, and then it's fostered this great relationship that I still have with him. Yeah. But the Buffy reboot, I want you heard it here first. Mike Patterson wants to work on the Buffy reboot. So if you know anybody, please, I will give you my resume.
Alrighty, thank you guys. That's awesome.
If there's anyone here, oh, yep, we have another question. I like the shirt.
Hi, my name is Genevieve. Anna, you talked about working in wanting to do sci-fi, and I find that interesting. And I know that you edited the first episode of Dune. I was just curious how much creative freedom you had on that, because since it's scripted, I was just curious about your experience on that.
Yeah, Dune Prophecy was a fun one because I had known the showrunner Alison Shapker from Westworld, and so she called me when she knew that she was going to be the showrunner on Dune and asked if I wanted to be a part of it. And I jumped at it because I love the Dune franchise. So I actually had a lot of creative freedom and control on Dune Prophecy. It was kind of a special situation. It was difficult because it was filmed during the writer's strike and the Screen Actors Guild strike. They had finished writing all of the scripts. They raced to the finish line before the writer's strike happened, and then they were on a, what is it, like a British equity actor deal instead of a SAG deal, and so they were able to continue shooting in Budapest when the SAG strike happened. They had like 3 SAG actors. So what they ended up doing was shooting all of the episodes concurrently and saving the scenes with the 3 SAG actors till the end,
Right.
and so that they could come on after the strike. And it made it very difficult because they weren't able, typically when you're on set, the writers are on set and they write new pages or edit as they're shooting and hand out new script pages. So like that day when they're shooting, and they weren't able to do that because the writers were striking. And so they were shooting what they had written before they even started shooting, if that makes sense. So we had to do a lot of creative problem solving and editorial to make stories work. We were shifting around scenes. We were finding that there was too much dialogue, so we'd have to cut out big swaths of it because they had overwritten the scripts. So our cuts were, 2 hours long sometimes for an episode, and so we'd have to find an hour to get rid of or put somewhere else. And so it was a challenge, and it was a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun to really stretch your kind of storytelling part of your brain that you're not always asked to use as an editor. Sometimes as an editor, you feel like a set of hands, and you can be so much more if people will trust you. And I had that level of trust with Allison, and by the end of the show, I became like a producing editor and was, Allison and I would just sit together for very long nights figuring out the story arc for all 6 episodes. And it was also great because unlike with network television, with like an HBO show, you can typically watch every episode. You have the luxury of seeing the entire story arc, and you can go back to episode 1 and change things based on what happens in episode 6. Like with network television, it's the schedule's fast and furious, so you're delivering your episode 1 and airing it before your episode 2 is, or your episode 2 is still shooting, so you don't have that luxury. So yeah, no, it was tremendously creatively fulfilling in a way that shows aren't always.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Anybody? Anybody? I mean, this is before we asked Martin to do it, so I'm giving
Who's
more
Martin?
time. He's my favorite student because he actually asks questions.
Oh, okay.
Martin, it's time to save the day.
Hi, Martin Hackett. Big fan. I love your paper on the migratory patterns of the Anna's hummingbirds and how that compared to the Costas hummingbirds. I thought it was a seminal piece of work. One of the things I often want to know is what gives you your creative spark? What recharges your battery when it comes to creativity? One of the things that I find is that, for example, not this weekend, but the following weekend, my wife and I will be driving to LA so she can go to galleries and to museums because we don't have a lot here in Las Vegas, but that's one of the things that helps recharge her creative battery. We all have things that are our passions, our hobbies, or things that are away from the work that we do. What is it for you that does that?
I was like, do I have passions that are outside of filmmaking? And I was like, oh, right. People do. I don't know if I do. I guess that's not true. I mean, I love professional wrestling, which is also how Drew and I are friends. I don't know if I'm outing him as a professional wrestling dork.
No.
He is. Sorry. But
I pay too much for it.
yeah. But like, I mean, that's like live theater. It's performance art. It's a spectacle, and like, that kind of re-energizes me. I also think like you started asking this question, and I was like immediately thinking of what I'm working on now, which is like this murder mystery whodunit, and like the dailies are so good that it really just kind of like sparked this like creativity in me, whereas like I don't know, like I'd just done 2 things in a row that I was just kind of like, we're kind of just paycheck jobs, and so my answer is like, I think like good dailies sometimes are really just like, oh, I can do something with this, like I know how to like make this better, and like this is what I want to do. I want to like tell stories with my talent and make them better. Yeah, also hang out with my kid now is like, well, it kind of drains my battery, but he also like, he's just so cute and great and like recharges me. I don't know, Anna, do you have an actual answer for him?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat of like, I don't know that I have any hobbies outside of what I do, but my hobby growing up was watching TV and movies. So that is what energizes me. I go, when I'm in LA, I go to movies all the time. Like last weekend, I saw Friendship at the Vista, and the theater was packed and everybody was laughing uproariously. And there's nothing better than that experience of just being with like a communal group of people who love films and just having that film going experience. So watching movies, watching great TV shows, I guess being out in nature recharges my battery. Like if I'm stuck on a cut, like if I can't make something work, I'll go outside and take a walk, and I'm usually thinking about it while I'm there, and it can, sometimes the best editing isn't done in front of your computer, it's done, in your dreams or as you're walking or in other situations. I'd say a lot of my best editing is done in my head.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't do much outside of the entertainment industry. Uh, but I have kind of migrated out of LA and I spend a lot of time in Colorado just working remotely from Colorado,
Nice.
and just being able to get outside in the fresh air is incredibly important to me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martin. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, all right, let's go.
Ooh.
Oh my God. Like,
Uh-oh.
no, this is sorry. Just wait for a
Good
second. This
questions.
guy doesn't show up to class at all. So like
Uh-oh.
this is a real big deal.
Is his question, where am I?
Hello, my name is Luis, and my question was of how do you guys kind of balance your work life with like your personal life? I know like the filmmaking business can take up a lot of your time. I was kind of just wondering like how do you guys really balance like spending time with people you care, but also with like the craft that you care for?
I can jump in. It's definitely difficult, and as you're starting out, it's really hard to find that balance because you kind of have to give your everything to make a good impression and just do what people ask of you. I wound up in a situation. I wound up in a situation where I was on a show that was really hard. Then I saw another editor who left. We were staying until midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and there was another editor on the show who would leave at 6 p.m. And so I went and I had a conversation with him, and he's like, "Look, I get my work done and I leave." And it was like a revelation at that point of like, yeah, just get your work done and get out of there. And so I've really took that to heart, and I've implemented that in my life. And now that I have a little bit more power and clout, I can do that more easily. Of just say, yeah, it's 6 p.m. and I'm gonna go home and make dinner for myself and be with family. And now that I live in Colorado and work remotely a lot, I can step away. I can, pick up my nieces and nephews from school. And so I would say it happens, but you kind of have to pay your dues in order to make it happen. Or, like the assistant editor that works for me now, since I value time, it's like she's lucky because she gets to leave when I leave.
Mhm.
So it is who you work for, and then a little bit of luck, but also kind of when you have the power, setting that example for everybody else of it's okay to step away.
Yeah. You can even do it at a micro level too if you don't really have the power. I worked with the editor that hired me on the Blacklist, Chris Brookshire. He was adamant about never eating lunch at his keyboard. And it happens all the time. And he was like, "You're not going to get any more work done. Take the break. You're supposed to take the break. It's a union rule. A lot of people work through lunch. A lot of producers, will want to do it." And it's like, yeah, okay, fine. Everyone, but like Chris was like, "We're taking a break." And that little power, right? Like it was very fulfilling to have, and like made a huge impact on me, as that was my first scripted job, and being like, oh yeah, take the break. It also sets the tone, I think, for the rest of your post family that you kind of inherit on each job. It's like, oh, well, Mike's eating. Oh, should I go eat? Yeah. Oh, I want to go eat with, like, you don't have to like force everybody to go, but like you go and you take the time. I think too, what's important is, like Anna said, like starting out, you're kind of like, you have to do everything. What's great about a place like LA is like, you're usually also meeting people that are in the same industry. Like my husband, for example, he's a writer. So like when we first met and started dating, it was like, I have to work 12-hour days, maybe even like, and you know, at 7:30, I could find out I'm staying until midnight, like, and I have to cancel our date. And it was like, he understood and he still understands. You know, he's not always happy about it. I'm not always happy about it, but it happens. And it's just kind of like, yep, okay. Because we know we have that understanding. I think it's harder to have a work-life balance in this industry if you have people that don't understand it. And so like for me personally, like I have people that understand it, so I'm like, I'm grateful for that. Because yeah, a lot of times you have no choice. It's
Yeah, it's a weird job,
Yeah.
and it's definitely hard to maintain a work-life balance, and I
Yeah.
do, it has ruined many a relationship for sure.
Yeah.
But you know, I think you really do need to love it and have a passion for it, and this
Yeah.
is what this has to be what you want to do,
Oh yeah.
because it's exactly that. Yeah, I can step away at 6 p.m. most of the time, or even earlier sometimes.
Mhm.
But there are going to be times, there always are on every show, where you have very late nights,
Oh, yeah.
and it'll be a last minute thing where the showrunner all of a sudden wants to work with you, or the studio had surprise notes, or something happened at the mix where somebody didn't like a cut after all, and you have to open it up, and
Yeah.
and it's a huge time and money suck for everybody. And it's always going to happen, and you're kind of at the mercy of the show. So it's definitely something to go into knowing that you really have to like it.
Yeah.
You can't just go in thinking vaguely maybe you want to do it. But it's so fulfilling, and if you do love it, it's a great career. And LA is very expensive to live in, granted, but you can make good money
Mhm.
doing it.
Yeah. And like, and Anna's kind of already touched on this, but like when things went more remote, I think that opened up a lot of like just being home and like just seeing like my husband, even though I was at work, was like, oh, okay. And now that like we have a son, it's like, oh, like he is, I am seeing him when he comes home from daycare, even though I am at work.
Yeah.
So that's been a really nice blessing, I think, out of everything that came from that.
Yeah, it's made life for me so much easier.
Yeah.
For exactly that reason. Like you're working, but you still see the people that are around you, and you can make your own lunch and make your own dinner and
Yes.
go for a walk. And
Yeah, do a
run
workout.
errands,
Yeah,
do
like
laundry.
yeah,
It's
because like you have a lot of dead time too. Like
Yeah.
if you're, especially if your dailies are done, your cuts are done, you're waiting on producer notes. It's like, all right, let me do 30 minutes of yoga while I'm waiting for notes. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you guys.
sure.
Thank you for coming to class. It's great. Yeah.
And then he leaves, right?
He's like, I already got my stuff. I'm
Yeah,
gonna go.
bye.
Hi, my name's Lael.
Hi.
My question is about working from home. So how did both of you make that transition? And what was you kind of already talked about it a little bit, but what was the transition like when you first made it?
Pandemic made the transition.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So everything was in office forever, and then 2020 comes along, and I was finishing up Westworld at the time, and Jonah Nolan, who's the showrunner of Westworld, kind of anticipated that everything was going to get locked down, and so he, in like January, was starting to make plans in case
Wow.
there was kind of a lockdown. So he was looking into remote solutions very early. And then so we were able to kind of transition pretty seamlessly from being in office to being remote on that. But that was at like the end stages of finishing the show. But then the first gig that I got was a Netflix show called Lock and Key, and that was October of 2020. And they shipped me a bunch of equipment to Colorado to set up the home office, and then we use this thing called Jump. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. There are a couple different systems now, but Jump is the primary system that we've been using for the last 5 years, which essentially I have a Mac Mini at home and 3 monitors, and I connect via Jump to a system at a post facility in LA that's connected to what's called a Nexus, which stores all of the media for the show, and an Avid, which the Avid connects to the Nexus, and I tap in remotely to the Avid, and it's just like it's as if I were in the office. So I have my 3 monitors with full screen playback and the source record monitoring timeline, and then my bins on another monitor, and it's been seamless. Like the first show was a little rocky, but since then, if you have a good internet connection, no problems.
Mm-hmm. I was on Reno 911 for Quibi, LOL. And we we had it was February. We'd finished shooting the entire season by the end of February. March, we all shut down. We had to put everything on hard drives, on multiple hard drives, because we had 3 editors, 3 assistants, and we were basically file sharing through Slack. It was, we didn't know it. We didn't have Jump yet. We just were like, well, we know this will work. So like we would send MXF files through Slack. So that was kind of like the first one. And then, yeah, I worked on Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. That season 2 started in September. And then, yes, we were on Jump. They also sent like stuff to our equipment home. But then like it sort of became like, oh, well, like I could buy my own system and get like more money out of the studios if I do a box rental and work a deal and and so then you start like accumulating your stuff, and yeah, like now it's seamless. I cut a pilot in March of 2021. It was hard because the producer's internet connection was bad, but like we still didn't have vaccines or anything like that, and like I was editing it in my house, and she was like, can I please come over? And it was like, no, you cannot like, I'm really sorry but like this is how we have to do it. It's gotten a lot better though. It is like, it's fairly seamless, although I think I like working in office with director and producer. Like cutting dailies, I love cutting at home. I think that's like putting an editor's cut together is like when it's really nice, or like when you've got notes and stuff. But like when you really need to like work something out and hammer things together, like there's really nothing like that in-person working collaboration, which is also the fun of editing. I think it's like you have your ideas as an editor, you look at the footage and you're like, okay, I see the problems here, but like I see the opportunities here also. And it's like you have the person responsible for it being like, well, no, that's not how I imagined it at all, and like actually it's this. And it's like you can do that through technology, like we're doing this right now, but I do think there's like something worth like still getting in a room and collaborating with fellow artists. So anyway, that's how we started and doing the remote stuff. The pandemic forced it. And some good things came out of it, I think. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Bueller? Ashley, do you have a question? I know you just showed up, but actually, well, I'll just let somebody else ask a question, and then we'll go over to Ashley if she wants to. Anyone? Okay. Ashley, do you have a question? I know you just got here, but
Unfortunately not.
Okay. Thank you for saving me once again, Martin.
Hi, Martin Hackett. You may remember me such roles as Drew's go-to guy for questions. One of the things that I often think about, and Mark, please don't tell your husband that I asked this question, is how much emphasis is placed on the writers and so much less emphasis is placed on the editing. Even though in the final product, the storytelling that we see is what the editor created. What resources do you use or do you know of that would be something you would recommend to starting editors to be able to become better storytellers?
Oof.
I don't ask easy questions.
Say it again. Can you say the question again?
What resources do you go to? I mean, some people will use understanding comics as a reference. Other people will possibly use things like Paul Hirsch's book a long time ago on a cutting room floor far away. Things that you think are excellent resources for starting editors to practice their craft or to hone their craft.
I always tell people, this is my experience. I think I know storytelling, and storytelling is innate to me because I watch so much TV and so many movies. And I think if you analyze it, if you don't just watch it to watch it, but if you analyze what's working and what's not working in a TV show or a movie and kind of get it clear in your mind, for me, when I'm putting together a scene or I'm putting together a story, I see it while I watch the dailies. I know what shots to use as I'm watching the coverage to best tell the story arc. And I think it's because it's just so ingrained in me, in my head, of what makes good TV and what makes good film, because I've just watched a lot of good and bad content. I went to film school. I did so many fantastic editing mentors who also, we sat in class. It was like film analysis, and watched our fellow students cut and picked it apart and analyzed it. And I had Don Camburn, who edited Easy Rider. I was his TA at AFI, and he's telling us his experience as we're watching his movies, and he's talking about the process of making them. So that was that was a very privileged way to kind of learn storytelling. And another resource that was great for me, reading books doesn't translate well into learning storytelling. That's just not the way that I process information the best. But I'm sure, I did love In the Blink of an Eye, Walter Murch's book. I took a lot of that to heart, but for me, it was more like real world editing, just getting your hands on as much footage as possible and putting it together, and reworking it and talking to other people and getting their analysis of it, and seeing, getting notes and trying to make the notes work. That's how I learned storytelling.
Yeah. I think it's I've just always been telling stories, as a kid, and that kind of is how it started, right? I watched movies, and then I wanted to make movies, and then I was studying how movies were made so I could hone that craft. It's very similar to what Anna said. I really loved a book, and this was a book I read at UNLV. It's Sam Osteen's memoirs. It was called Cut to the Chase. It's his wife sort of interviews him, and he talks about working with Mike Nichols a lot, and that was the sort of aha moment, the 1-2 of editing in George Wang's class, oh, Gunsmoke, got it, and then reading this book, I was like, oh, okay, this is editing, and storytelling. I think too, it's you just have to want to continue to make things the best that they can. And if you have that kind of I don't know if you can learn that, but that's kind of my thing. I'm like, how can we make this story better, tighter, like the pacing, like what is this, are the beats where they should be? Like, do we watch this every single time and is it perfect? And it's like, I don't know. And it's always different, right? Every single piece that you work on is going to be different, and you may never know, but you'll feel it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Okay, great. Yeah, but cut to the chase, I think is great. I think also just like, watching good movies, watching bad movies. I love watching bad movies.
Me too.
Because like you can learn something from bad movies. It's like, why was that bad? Why didn't that work? Why did they think they could get away with that ADR line? You know, like things like that is where you like, okay, well, like I'm gonna store that away, and like if someone pitches that idea, politely talking that down, because you're like, well, no, because like they did that in Madam Web, and guess what? Like it wasn't great, you know.
To your first point, Martin, like about writing having more clout than editing.
Oh yes.
I think it's, it's something that I thought about a lot, and writing, you can directly see, you can say that's bad writing. You can't really, sometimes you can, but you can't really say that's bad editing, because with editing, you don't see on a show what somebody had to work with, what the coverage is, and so it's just it is such an invisible art, and so I think it's easy for the people at large, the studio executives, to undervalue editing, and because it's not tangible, and it's so subjective.
It's also it reminds me of when I worked on a show called Feud, and I remember the show got nominated like for the Emmys that year, and like Susan Sarandon and Jessica Lange both got their nominations, but like, and writing got nominated, but like editing we completely missed. And I remember asking my editor, I was like, well, are you sad about that? And he was like, well, no, the show got nominated. He's like, so like that's because of us, so like that is just as good. And I was like, oh, okay. So like, sure, the writing will get called out because, like Anna said, that's tangible. It can get called out, but it's like editing. It's like the writing gets praised because like we put it where it needed. We put those words, we timed those words, we paced them out where they needed to go in order to really elevate it. So
I'm a little more cynical than that. I don't appreciate when the shows get nominated.
Well, sure.
But it can be, and it's like, there's a show that I worked on at one point in time where I was a bit of a fix-it editor, and you come in and the show had big names, and I watched the cuts that existed, and they were terrible. Like, I don't know how these great actors could look so bad. And you do all this work, and you get to a point. I was at the sound mix, and they're like, the show is great, like it's fantastic. They're like, it's not because of the directing, it's not because of the writing, it's because the editing and the show, the showrunners came together and we made the show good. And that's never going to be seen, that's never going to be acknowledged, and it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, I have to say. So it's kind of the life of the editor, and something you have to accept if you want to be an editor. It's like you're not going to get the acknowledgement that maybe is deserved in the craft.
Yeah, it's like the twofold of like me loving being in a dark room away from actors and things like that is, well, I will never be really in the spotlight, right? Like, it's, yeah.
I have two more questions, if you're okay with it and you guys are okay with it. The first one.
Stay here forever.
It's like a time loop. The first one is referencing loving bad movies. Are there any bad movies that you particularly love as a guilty pleasure? And I will be honest with mine, it's Hudson Hawk. There's just something about it I love, even though I know it's a bad movie. And speaking to that, I've recently downloaded the screenplay to read it, and oh my God, the movie is so much better than that.
Well, I don't subscribe to the term guilty pleasure. I don't feel like I'm like, if something is bad but I get pleasure out of it, I don't feel guilty about it. But I know some people do. But so to answer your question, man, well, like, I do love Madam Web. I think Madam Web is a disaster, but it's beautiful. Cats, which gave us the pandemic, let's just say. I mean, like, wow. The really great thing I think about movies like that is movies and TV shows don't just happen in a vacuum. There are so many people that have to approve every single decision you see on screen to where that's the end result. And I think that's beautiful. I really do. Like, it's a nightmare. It's atrocious, but it's like, wow, look at what they did with their resources. That's what they did. Yeah. I don't know. But it's also like, I think too, what I appreciate about things like that is it's like everybody tried. Everybody tried. I remember somebody comparing the live action Little Mermaids VFX to Avatar Way of Water's VFX, right? And being like, the exact phrasing of this tweet was like, how could those artists look at Avatar Way of Water and think they did a good job? The Little Mermaid. And I was like, well, first of all, like, they have completely different budgets. They have completely different expectations. They have schedules, da 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 da. It's like everybody went home thinking they did the best to their ability on that job with the resources they have. So, like, shut up to that person. That is to say, like, I think everybody is trying to do their best, but there are limitations, and sometimes those limitations get the best of everyone.
I'm scrolling through my letterbox now.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to see the last bad movie.
I've got more bad. I mean,
loved.
well, like, Showgirls for a really long time was
Showgirls.
considered a guilty pleasure, or like a bad movie, but I think it's correctly gotten a reframe, because it's a gorgeous movie.
Also,
It's-
Paul Verhoeven, we were talking about him earlier.
Yeah, I mean, like, that movie's fascinating. I shouldn't have even said it, because I could talk for hours about Showgirls. I think it's a masterpiece, and like, people still call it a bad movie, and I'm like, I think you should revisit it. There are parts that I'm like, sure, yes, I understand, but I also love camp. Batman and Robin. That's my final one too. Love Batman and Robin. Would rather watch the Joel Schumacher verse over any of the Christopher Nolan movies. So, Anna, what do you got?
I know. I'm looking. I have Madam Web. I was seeing that I did like it, but I also said I watched the whole thing. Why did I watch the whole thing? But I watch a bunch of like Netflix really bad movies. Merry Gentlemen and Hot Frosty. I cannot recommend.
Oh yeah.
But no, I do think I enjoy watching bad movies, and I don't consider them guilty pleasures either. I watch them because I enjoy the process of watching them and talking about them later and kind of dissecting them. And the same thing, like, people work on these, and the editors probably have very little to work with. And probably bad writing and probably bad acting, and you've got to put it together in a way that's watchable. And so I do appreciate the craft that goes into it, certainly.
Yeah, it's always interesting too to watch something that like is considered not good. I want to get away from calling things bad, but considered not good, and being like, how could they have made that better, and why was this the best because nobody wants to do a bad job. Those editors, those sound designers, nobody wants to do a bad job, but it's like, well, this is what they shot, this is what we have to work with, and you have to, like, it's like, all right, which finger am I cutting off to make, to stop the infection from spreading? like yeah, it's fun to watch everything though.
That's fair. Thank you for answering that one. That gave me an idea. Now I'm completely lost it. So that's fun. But the other question I had is, so both of you have been assistant editors, and you know what you would look for if you were to say be hiring somebody as a candidate to be your assistant editor right out of film school. So what if you were interviewing somebody to be your assistant editor straight out of film school, say one of my classmates, what would you be looking for? What would that ideal candidate have?
It's a good question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think I definitely, I mean, you need to have some technical proficiency in Avid. I need to be able to count on my assistant to be able to know the software and to be able to, listen to direction of like how I like my bins organized. And some kind of enjoyment in doing sound design, because that's a big part of the job now. But I also want somebody who wants to be an editor. Mentorship for me was so important as an assistant editor. I got to work with great editors who would let me in on the process, let me sit in on their director's cuts and producer's cuts and watch the process happen. They would let me cut scenes and were very generous in telling people that I was the one who cut those scenes. If there were compliments and if there was criticism, they'd keep that to themselves. And so that to me is important to pass on. So I want somebody, typically they're a little younger and are hungry to edit and want to be given those opportunities and want to rise in the ranks. But so I would say some technical proficiency that can be taught and learned on the job, but it has to be a baseline, and then just somebody I can get along with, and because we spend long hours together, even if it's remote, and somebody who wants to be where I am someday.
Yes. Parrot everything Anna just said. I also personally, because I know how hard it was to make the jump from unscripted to scripted, and I know almost every candidate will be coming through that pipeline generally. Like I would absolutely look at a resume that has a lot of unscripted credits and be like, you were very qualified, like come on over. Like that's something me personally that like the sort of like chip on my shoulder a little bit is like, I want to give me the opportunity out the gate that I didn't get right away, if that makes sense. But yeah, like they have to want to edit. They have to have a personality, but be able to read the room. Because like, yeah, we spend a lot of time just hanging out sometimes, and it's like you're talking a lot, and then like you get comfortable with producers and directors and things like that, but then like there is a time to like, okay, focus, and like we're cultivating this story, we're forming it, and so like let's focus all of our attention to that. And sometimes you can learn that, sometimes you can't really. Having technical proficiency is definitely a must. What are you learning? What program are you?
We're working through Avid. Drew's been taking us kicking and screaming into it. So
what are you used to? Premiere?
Prior to this, yeah, we went through our editing class covered Premiere and was really focused in that. So this is to kind of give us more of an Avid foundation.
Great. Yeah. Avid's a must. And you'll want to work on shows that are on Avid, because that's usually the higher paying stuff, the better stuff. Not better as terms of quality of product, because like Everything Everywhere All at Once was cut on Premiere, or they found a Final Cut 7, I remember reading. But the point is like that will open way more doors for you immediately. If you know, like, if you can say, yep, I know Avid, yep, I know Premiere. Resolve is starting to get sort of like, I like, people have asked me, have you cut on Resolve? I'm like, no, isn't that a coloring thing? And now I might have to learn Resolve. I don't know. Do I? Maybe. We'll see. You guys should. Yeah, just knowing, like, being able to say, like, yep, I can do that, like, is a surefire way to, like, get hired. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, let me put the camera on me. Soren, wake up. Let's see. I just want to thank you guys for coming in and speaking to the class. This was our last day. This is pretty much our final. I just wanted to get 2 UNLV editors that have gone on to great success to come to the class and speak to my students. So thank you guys. I wish you guys nothing but the best, and we really appreciate you coming.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Drew. It was a
Yeah.
pleasure.
All right. Hey, now you get an applause. You get an applause.
Oh,
Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
you guys-
Nice meeting you all.
thank you. Yeah, nice meeting you. Good luck
All
on the rest of your final. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. You guys take it easy.
Bye.